So I'm finally back doing some camera comparisons, and I've got with me here the iPhone 17 Pro Max up against the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra and the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. Front-facing cameras, 4K 30 right now. Testing the stability. I'm also swapping over the audio sources so we can listen to which one is the best, because there is a little bit of wind, so I want to see how that wind noise is going to be handled by these phones. So light job now, testing out that electronic image stabilization, and I believe the iPhone may even have optical image stabilization with that front-facing camera. So all the phones are on their latest firmwares at the time of this video. Now I've gone over to 4K 60 frames per second with our rear cameras. So the iPhone, you may know, it has 48 megapixels for all of the rear cameras. It's a main camera. I'll swap over to now, and those ultra wides are using electronic image stabilization. So the main cameras, now there's a big difference here, because 48 megapixels with the iPhone, 200 megapixels with our Samsung, and then the Huawei, well, it's the 1-inch sensor that it's using 50 megapixels there. So stability looking good, but I'm just walking. So now a bit of a jog. Which do you think looks the steadiest here? And now I can swap over to a 3x preset with the Samsung 3.7 with our Huawei. So it has that switchable lens. It can go 3.7 optical to 10 times optical, and 5 times with the Samsung, 4 times optical with our iPhone, and there is a preset to do 8 times there. I'll go to 10 with the Samsung, and then the 10 times with the Huawei. I'm trying to get the cameras to look more or less at the same area, but a bit difficult here considering we have slightly different focal lengths. So I'll take the iPhone up to 10 times now. That is exactly 10 times. Just going to walk a little bit and see which one is the steadiest. And now applying even more zoom. So I'll take it up to 15 now on all devices. That's 15 with the Samsung now, and 15 now with the iPhone. Now here we are in low light. First up is the ultra wide. This is again 4K 60 frames per second. I can see there's a massive difference in the exposure and what is being captured between these phones. Samsung looks to be the darkest here out of all of them when it does come to the ultra wide. So swapping now to our main cameras. Take a look and see which one looks the steadiest, the least amount of noise. And I wanted to check on that ever so present lens flare issue that we often get with these phones, especially the iPhone. I've noticed it, and okay, I can see a little bit. You see that when I look at that light there, the lamp, there's what looks like a UFO in the sky. Seems to be the best, I would say, on the Samsung. Second, the Huawei, and the worst is the iPhone there. So that is still the main cameras. And having another look at lens flare with this light, yeah, handled very differently across all three of them. But I do like the way it comes out on the Huawei here because of that mechanical iris that it has. So the aperture can change there from 1.4 to 4.0, so it looks a bit different there. We'll go over now to our zoom cameras. So we go 4 times optical zoom, 5 times with the Samsung, and 3.7 with the Huawei. I also have that 10 times option with the Huawei too, so I'll just test that. That's 10 times optical, and then back to the 3.7, and the iPhone I can take that up to 8 times now, and 10 times with the Samsung, looking absolutely awful, very dark there. And back to the main cameras, and a very short little jog testing out that stability between these 3 flagship phones. The final test is a video with the front-facing cameras. So we have 18 megapixels, 12 and 13. This is 4K 60 frames per second again too, and I can see there's quite a bit of difference in stability, and then how my face is exposed here with these very difficult conditions for such tiny little sensors.
So let's move over now to low light photography first. Now I wanted to point out that I do have the standard profile for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and I'm using the original color with the Pura 80 Ultra, and the Samsung is the default setting. So this is the main cameras right here, and you can see they're all very different when you look at the colors, the white balance. So they're more closer to what it should be is the Huawei here, because they're using orange lights, and that is reflected inside the restaurant area too, where those people are. You get more details in the balcony above with the Pura 80 Ultra. It is the brightest image, I would say. Almost, it looks like inside could also be a little bit overexposed, but it's like that with the Samsung as well. And the iPhone shot is good, but the white balance isn't correct. Bring it to 200%, you can see that none of them are perfect here, and I'll point out why, because we've got a lot of noise in the sky. The least amount of noise is with the Huawei, but the sky almost has a green tint to it, so not quite correct there either. But overall, it is the winner, and it's just showing that that larger sensor, the 1-inch sensor, definitely, I think, is helping. Testing the zoom cameras now in low light, there is a clear difference. When you see the sky again, there's a lot of noise with the iPhone. The Samsung has a little bit of noise, but it's a little bit blurry. Look at where it says Marina de Denia. It doesn't have as much detail as we do with the Pura 80 Ultra. So they're all 10 times zoom that I set to. And now as I crop into 200%, there's a lot more details showing with the Huawei. And I think for low light zoom, it is the champion here. But look at those pine trees. They're a muddied mess with the Huawei. I don't know what was the cause of that. Possibly AI. It's not a perfect shot either. Ultra wide cameras now. So this is the least favorable camera with its aperture to be using in a low light situation. But all three of the shots look pretty usable until you crop in, you can see some differences. Now the Huawei to me looks to be a bit too over sharpened. Samsung's good, but some of the details of the yachts are kind of missing there, and the iPhone not amazing either. And I would rate the Samsung as being the best with the low light here, and the white balance very similar between all three. Shot of the warm colored light bulb here, I use the optical zoom maximum, so 4 times with the iPhone, 5 with the Galaxy S25 Ultra, and the 3.7 times with our Huawei. Now cropping in, you can see some differences here with the noise, the way that is handled. The iPhone's the noisiest. The lens flare you can see just below the bulb completely renders that photo in 3rd place. And the Pura 80 Ultra, the least amount of noise, very good. However, the bulb itself is a little bit overexposed, and the Samsung, I think, got the white balance the best. It also captured that bulb the best too as well with the exposure. To daytime photos now. So portraits, they look good across all three. It's down to personal preference. I find the iPhone still is a little bit too warm, a little bit too orange, and this is in the standard mode. The Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, I believe, is the more pleasant shot. The skin tones look more close to what I would say true to life here, and the stitching and the background blur is excellent. The Pura 80 Ultra has the best amount of details when it comes to my daughter's hair here, and the background blur looks really good. However, I find the skin tones to be a little too light, and I often do see this with Chinese phones. They prefer over there to have lighter skin tones, and this is very present when taking portraits with this phone. So the winner for me, the Samsung. With selfies, I do find that the trend is very similar, that the iPhone will take a warmer looking photo. A lot of people like that. And even with the standard mode, I find it a little too warm. Skin tones with the Samsung are somewhere in between, but I did find that the Huawei with the selfies was the more natural kind of looking here. And yes, I've messed up this photo here because I've got one in portrait mode and it looks like the other two aren't in portrait mode. I do apologize for that, but it still gets my point across that I think with the Pura, the selfies are the best, and with the portraits, I still think the Samsung comes out on top. Main cameras now. So we have the 48 megapixels of the iPhone versus 200 megapixels of the S25 Ultra, and then the 50 megapixel 1-inch sensor of the Huawei. The brightness you can see of the Huawei is the brightest image. The HDR tends to brighten up those shadows a little bit. I find there's a little bit too much over-sharpening with the Huawei, and the iPhone's also over-sharpening a little bit. Now the colors, the more true-to-life correct white balance here is in fact the iPhone. The Samsung looks a little bit oversaturated. So it's a real mix between these three, but they all look excellent. Still keeping with the main cameras, you can see the big difference in the HDR processing. So the Huawei is bringing out a lot more details in the shadows. Perhaps it doesn't look as real as the other photos because it wasn't quite as I saw it. It's also gained the brightest image. Now, the Samsung sky is a little bit too blue from what I did see. Again, the iPhone seems to get the more true to life colors here. And it is really a preference of what do you prefer here? Do you like having more details in your shadows? You're someone that likes the HDR because it's a very different style between all of them. A little bit of post-processing sharpening happening clearly with the iPhone, also with the Huawei and the Samsung too as well. And I can't really declare a winner with this because they are all, again, excellent photos. So I think daytime main camera photos, you can't go wrong with any of these flagship phones. Listing out zoom cameras now, so 10 times zoom across all three of them, and you can see at first glance they look similar in terms of details. However, I find the Samsung's over sharpened a little bit too much. The Pura has a more saturated look to it. The sky wasn't really that color, so it's between the iPhone and the Samsung when it comes to the colors, the white balance here, and I'd say a little bit more correct with the iPhone, and I like the fact that the iPhone didn't seem to sharpen the image up as much as the Samsung. Now taking that zoom up to 30 times, this is where we do have quite a bit of a difference, as you can see. The iPhone is now coming in last place. That image is looking a little bit blurry, not very good at all. The Samsung is okay. It's not amazing there. I think the Huawei is the best, but again, the colors are a little bit off, they're a little bit stylized. Even though this is the original color, what is more original is really the Samsung or the iPhone in terms of colors. But the zoom, you can't deny that 10 times optical is certainly helping here with the Huawei. One more example of 30 times zoom. So the iPhone for me, that's clearly in last place. It's looking quite blurry. The Samsung, I mean, it looks reasonable. It is over sharpened a bit, and they've really just tweaked that sharpness right up. The Huawei's looking good. It's got that 10 times with the switchable lens there, so the 3.7 to the 10 times optical zoom, certainly helping it. It is again the one that has the colors slightly off. It's more like what the Samsung's showing, but overall I give the zoom camera here, the Huawei, it gets the win with the 10 times optical zoom. And lastly, we're looking back at our main camera. So this is where I wanted to point out again, look at the differences here in the colors, the color science, the white balance, saturation levels, contrast, everything. So a bit of a green tint with the Huawei. The iPhone looks the more correct here, and the Samsung is a mix between the two. With this close-up photo of this plant, I do like the bokeh we're getting. So the background blur with the Pura 80 Ultra 1-inch sensors looking good. Nice contrast, good details. The Samsung is probably a little bit brighter in the shadows, and the iPhone is also looking excellent. Very good, a lot of details captured there. And again, the colors seem to be more true to life with the iPhone. Now to recap my findings, I find for vlog video, the iPhone was the winner there. Good stability, great details, and I love the fact that the lens is now quite a bit wider. So this is perfect for people that like to vlog a lot, YouTubers, creators, and whatnot. Really good. The microphone performance, however, of the iPhone at certain times was very disappointing, especially with the zoom tests. And this is all the default settings. It's the Samsung that, to me, clearly had the best audio. And at times, say with the vlog footage, the Huawei didn't seem that bad at all, but a bit disappointed in the audio with the iPhone. Now, daytime video in general with the rear cameras, I think the iPhone was probably the smoothest and the best. However, with the ultra-wide, I did notice some jitter coming through. Some jitter was definitely obvious with low-light performance. Low light video, bit of a surprise here. That, I believe, went to the Huawei. Now, it does have the brighter main camera, but even with the other cameras, it had the least amount of noise, and the Samsung was terrible at times with the zoom cameras in low light for video. With stills then, I found portrait photos were the best with the Samsung. Daytime photos, while HDR, the brightest and the best HDR would be the Huawei. However, the Huawei colors I found to sometimes be just a little bit artificial, sometimes a bit too bright. The more true to life colors and the more accurate, I would say, white balance and what I've seen here is the iPhone, definitely. So they've done a good job there. The Samsung no slouch either. At times it took some very good shots, some good photos. They've definitely improved from the last update with Android 16, that One UI update. So that is great to see from them. And overall, I think with daytime shots, you can't go wrong with all three of these. It just depends on what style of photo you are after and what you do prefer. So thank you so much for watching this camera comparison. Do you agree with my findings here? If you don't, let me know. And which one would you go for here out of these three flagships?